Hi there, my name is Kay Moon, and I am a twin soul channel and Western astrologer. And this is a video about the full moon in Capricorn occurring on June 24th at 2:39 p.m. If you happen to be on the eastern seaboard of the United States, please check a time zone converter for your local time. This full moon has some very interesting aspects. We have the full moon sextile Jupiter and conjunct Pholus here. So there's a conversation here and here. We also have the full moon sextiling the creation goddess in a harmonious conversation with her, squaring Pallas right here, and squaring Make, where are you? Right here. There we go. Thankfully, the eclipse season is like the peak of it is coming to completion. The eclipses that we've experienced, ooh, what a ride. I'm just grateful that we're out of the woods on that until the fall. We've had the major eclipses occur already. But we've had some interesting developments that I'm going to talk about as we move through the video. Mercury has gone direct, thank the Lord. But Jupiter has gone retrograde, unfortunately. And so, with this energy all at the same time as this full moon, there's a little bit of integration going on at this time, integrating the lessons, integrating what's happened, integrating our feelings and our thoughts about it. And I wouldn't say this is the most peaceful full moon, but what I do see here is a lot of opportunity for growth with Jupiter having a conversation with the full moon. With Pholus in the mix, unfortunately, Pholus is really highlighting for us where we may have let ourselves become collateral damage to other people's issues. It's interesting because I was having a conversation with a friend of mine last night who happen to have the exact same birthday. And much of our lives have run on parallel tracks. And one of the things that he was sharing with me as we were talking was that he was getting a rude awakening around some of his friendships and really recognizing that he had kind of been collateral damage to other people's issues, other people's jealousy, other people's problems with gossip, or other people's problems with their own insecurity and the way they handled that inside of their friendship. And I've had a very similar experience recently with people where I'm like, wow, well, this is an eye opener. It tells me who you really are. I'm so glad I got that after way too long. And so full is speaking in direct harmony with this particular full moon, maybe revealing that to you in one area of life or another. And it's an interesting dynamic, right? Because when you start to see with both eyes open, that's when you get the opportunity to grow. That's when we get the opportunity to step through the portal into the next iteration of who we're going to be. And so here is Jupiter saying, okay, we're going to move retrograde. We're going to give you this opportunity to self reflect, to realize who you are, to find inspiration within, and to start to take steps to move your life in a healthier direction for you. And so while Jupiter retrograde, as Jupiter came to stand still, I'm going to talk more about this shortly, may have facilitated a bit of a artistic influence, a sleepy influence. Pisces governs our dreams. People could have felt very heavy as Jupiter moved into Pisces, very tired. This particular energy is facilitating an inward glance, an inward look, like who am I and how did I get into this situation in the first place? And what is it that I need to do at this time in order to be able to be in a different location. Okay, so that's some of the energy here with this particular full moon in Capricorn conjunct Pholus sextile Jupiter. With the creation goddess in the mix at a harmonious angle as well, this is giving us that opportunity to start to strategize and see, okay, what do I need to do to manifest a different reality for myself? For some of you, this is going to be about creating different boundaries, especially as Saturn and Uranus are in conversation all year long. This is going to be about creating different boundaries. This is going to be about facilitating a new, just kind of new work or a new way to be in your relationships, as creation goddess sits inside of the realm of relationships, new structure to your work relationships. For some of you, to some of your business partnerships, like really revisiting, okay, I see, if this is who you are and this is how you play, then I need to do this and this and this for myself at this time and operate in this and this and this way. We have a square to Pallas, which I mentioned. The square to Pallas, and Pallas is in a conjunction here with Neptune. Although the moon's not talking directly to Neptune, Pallas is talking to Neptune and Pallas is talking to the moon. Pallas is taking on more of her inspirational approach to being a guardian and being a protector, and wanting to facilitate protective energy of the spiritual truths that we hold most dear. And so at this time, you may really come to kind of like a nagging clarity that something's not working, especially since Mercury has turned direct. But you may not fully yet be certain why it's not working. It may not really be clear how or what you need to do, because Mercury is direct and Mercury is no longer talking to Neptune. Hallelujah. It will a little bit more in a couple weeks' time as Mercury moves back into that square position as it moves forward. But at this time, depending upon who you have found yourself to be that kind of collateral damage energy to, if it's, you may find it helpful to talk to a friend or phone a family member with the sun lighting up this particular full moon, or talk to someone who's, particularly part of your soul family. But, if you're kind of like my friend and I, where you realize like, oh, it's the friendships that are the issue here. This is a problem. Can't do that anymore with people. You may want to find a different friend to talk to. Um, but yeah, this conversation with Make here, that's a direct square, has also really pit some of that, some of your personal growth against that place where you're feeling like, wow, the configuration of this relationship just isn't working, or the configuration of this job just isn't working. And so you may realize at this time that the place where you have felt kind of collateral damage to other people's issues, and I'm really going to explain this a little bit more momentarily, so just hang with me. But where you're feeling this energy, you as you're coming to this realization, you may also really be recognizing that this has come at the cost of your personal development, that this has really come at the cost of what it is that you want to create here on planet Earth and who you want to be. And so you may be in a position now where, because you're recognizing the cost of it, you're now in a place of going, okay, I can't let this be the way I operate this anymore. I've got to step up. I've got to say something. I've got to change something. I was talking to another friend of mine who was explaining, just some of the work dynamics that they have going on, and that, that they work with someone who's just fairly disorganized at times, and that the disorganization has then led to all of them, the entire team, losing money. Um, and at the one, on the one hand, they need the job, but on the other hand, it's like, okay, I got to figure something out so that this configuration is no longer a problem for me. Because when we lose money, I lose money, and I'm already not in a position where I can lose money at all. So let's talk about this concept, this idea of collateral damage and Follis, since Follis is kind of the star of the show. Follis in the mythology is a bit like Chiron in some ways, but not others. Follis had the misfortune of being in the wrong place at a wrong time when a war broke out. And in that war, he sustained injuries from the poison arrows that were coming at him and his allies. But simply because, he happened to be, it was an arrow for somebody else, he happened to catch it. And now here he is losing his life. And that's kind of the idea here with the idea of collateral damage. It's like the issue isn't necessarily your issue or your problem. However, somebody else's issue has grown to a magnitude that it's now impacting you and it's becoming your problem. And so this full moon in Capricorn is really highlighting where we need to mitigate some of the damage, do some damage control, and mitigate some of the risk that we ourselves are sustaining or taking on by dealing with people who have these particular problems. So you want to be looking around your life to get a sense, because this full moon is it's going to illuminate it where there are just certain things that are not working. Another example has to do with the energy of not another friend of mine had an issue with work and recognizing that they were taking money. They didn't want any small money anymore. They didn't want any small parts anymore. And really kind of recognizing that as long as they were saying yes to these little small gigs, unfortunately, it blocked up and took up so much of their time and energy and headspace that they couldn't make time to find gigs that were going to pay them more. And so there was this kind of recognition like, wow, I'm being collateral damage to my own abundance issues. And I recognize that I can't keep playing, like something is better than nothing. Because they had recognized that, something in every case isn't actually better than nothing. And that's kind of, for where that person's at in their career trajectory and what they want to do and accomplish. It would make more sense at this time in their career trajectory to say no a bit more and only say yes to things that have a higher bar, a higher level of standards, so that they can move forward. And so the place where you might find yourself experiencing being collateral damage, I'm just writing this down. The title just came to me for this video. The place where you might be experiencing that at this time may not be outside of you or with someone else. It may actually be inside of you and with a mental construct that you have. And dare I say, dare I be so bold, all issues on the outside are a direct reflection of an issue that's there on the inside. And so if, even though in this case, the mythology, Pholus was allied, to a soul group, that he had that put him in the wrong place at the wrong time. Sometimes we're not meant to be in league with the soul group. We're meant to lead the soul group. And it's time to step up, step forward with, a new set of standards for how we're going to conduct our lives. And those people can either fall in line or fall off. is some of the ways this goes once in a while. Either we're ascending and they're coming with us, or they're not coming with us, but us not ascending is not an option. And this particular full moon is really going to illuminate it for a lot of people, where in our lives we're feeling like, okay, I'm either party to my own problem, like I am just indulging this too much and I need to switch up the way I'm behaving, or there's other people's problems going on here and I have just allowed myself to stand in way too close proximity to people who are being meshy. And so it's nice to kind of recognize that and take a step back. If they're messy, that doesn't mean you have to be. Okay, so that is the energy here. Jupiter is illuminating it, giving us the insight about it, helping us recognize, where we need to be doing our own spiritual growth here. And creation God is giving us that opportunity to take a new step, create new boundaries, step up, speak up, whatever the circumstance is. There is some real clarity here that, okay, it's time for me to complete this cycle. Full moons represent completions. I wanted to let you guys know that the July calendar is open. If you'd like to book a reading in July, you're more than welcome to. The link to do that is below this video at kmoonastro.com. And if you're already hearing something that resonates, because we are going to dive deeper, there's a lot more going on here than just that. Hit that like button. And if you're new, welcome. Please subscribe. I'm here on the new and the full moon to deliver updates that clarify your experiences and validate your intuition like this. Let's give a pause here and see if YouTube wants to show an ad. If you're willing to watch it, that means so much to me. The YouTube revenue really does help me be able to continue to provide content like this, and I really appreciate it. Thanks so much. Amazing. I really appreciate you taking a minute to watch that. All right, let's dive in. So I mentioned this earlier that Mercury is now direct. Hallelujah. No longer speaking to Neptune. Double hallelujah. But it's going to be a bit before things get really clear. Mercury's direct, Jupiter is retrograde. And so what this means is that while there is some greater clarity to the events of the Mercury retrograde, full clarity is not really going to come until Mercury moves out of the retrograde zone in its entirety. And we're looking at beginning of July for that. So I mentioned this in the last video, but I'll just reiterate it here that, in particular, if you've got that Mercury ruled sixth house, meaning a Virgo or a Gemini sixth house for my star school, as you'll know, sixth house is about health and well-being. It is a fantastic time to just pause on any testing that you need to do in order to facilitate, lab work, because you may have to retest or get a second opinion once Mercury is fully out of the retrograde zone. That continues through the shadow period post Mercury retrograde. Things may still be a little unclear. Things may still feel like, I might be missing something. You might be waiting on another shoe to drop. I had sent something to my mom, certified mail during this period, and the it was funny. Then I sent a card to my dad for Father's Day. They're in the same location. My father got his card sent regular mail first, but the special mail that I paid for to get there in 48 hours never got there until well after my dad got his card. It's that kind of energy. So if you're waiting to hear back for like a job, or you're waiting to hear back, for just important legal information as well, things may be a little bit still cloudy until about July, maybe a little bit slow. You may not have full clarity until July. It's all good. just hang tight until July, and know that if you're waiting to have important conversations with people in your world, July is a great time to be able to facilitate those after Mercury is completely done with its Mercury retrograde zone and the conversation with Neptune. During this time, however, Jupiter moving retrograde here in Pisces puts, mind may be waking up with Mercury moving forward, but motivation may be going to sleep a little bit with Jupiter moving backward. Jupiter and Pisces. Pisces is the realm of dreams. It governs the arts and entertainment. Jupiter governs opportunity and expansion, faith, hope, and optimism. And while that light may be seeming to go out in the external, when Jupiter goes retrograde, it gives us the opportunity to find that light on the inside for ourselves. Okay. We also have during this particular period of time, and I'll just say this as well, since Jupiter and the full moon are talking, anyone who's working on, writing projects or like developing musical projects or developing any sort of creative project, this is a huge period of time for inspiration for you. Do what you can to do as much work as you can to develop those creative projects. If you are a psychic or a medium or a channel, you may find that your intuition is at peak levels during this time. Some of your dreams may be giving you the kind of information that you haven't necessarily been able to get before. So definitely use this information, use this transit to assist yourself as Jupiter's in Pisces. Okay. Saturn during this period of time and Mercury are both highly aspected energies. And so when you have two planets at a lunation that are highly aspected, they're basically co-stars of the show, full moon being the main star, Saturn and Mercury as the co-stars, both of those in air signs, provide an energy provide the energy that Saturn and Mercury provide. On the mercurial end, this is all about communication, thought, mind, short distance travel, dealing with, figuring out and exploring things, seeing what the options are. Saturn retrograde in Aquarius gives us an energy, to be honest, a little bit of the old guard fights back. It's an energy. Uranus has been working this old guard all year, trying to get it to change, shift its priorities, create new boundaries, facilitate new standards and new traditions. Here in the United States, we got a new federal holiday during this time that was kind of a reversal of some of the ways that we really ignored the freedom of enslaved Africans as something that was part of our history. We got a new holiday called Juneteenth that facilitates celebration of that. That's now a federal holiday that the whole country will celebrate. And this is Uranus talking to Saturn, right? Uranus really wants change, revolution. Uranus wants to look out for the masses, for the people. Saturn is the old guard. Saturn's like, what do we need that for? Justice is just us. Like, what are you complaining about? Saturn wants to maintain the old structure, wants to maintain the way things used to be. And Uranus is working Saturn this year, really trying to break it down. And with Saturn having just gone retrograde, what we're going to see is further facilitation of a lot of these changes with whatever the old guard is in your life, in your country, in your community. We're going to start to see the ways in which Uranus is working to try to help us evolve toward a more inclusive, a more evolutionary society in our lives, a lifestyle, etc. Saturn, when I say the old guard strikes back, what you have here is an energy of Saturn dialing back, perhaps taking a little bit of a loss, only so that I can try when it moves forward again to grab a gain. And so this is something that we're going to need to pay attention to this year because, that saying, old habits die hard. This is one of those periods of time where if you want to start a new habit, you can, but it's going to be a bit of a battle this year, but you'll be able to establish it by the end of the year if you just keep with it. Because Saturn doesn't give up easily, not by any stretch. And so there's this phrase in French, I would butcher it if I said it, but it's the idea that, you kind of recoil or retreat so that you can better pounce later and you can better spring forward by recoiling back first. And so we're going to see just a little bit of that, this kind of recoil at this time, only for when Saturn to move direct, unfortunately, a little bit of the old guard going, and now we will fight back. And now we will, that old habit kind of rearing its ugly head again. And so I've mentioned this in multiple videos, but I'll just say it again. If there was any addiction that you'd been dealing with inside of this year, or not this year, but just in your lifetime, this Uranus and Saturn square of 2021 is a brilliant aspect in which to break an addiction. It's an addiction breaking kind of year. And there's multiple aspects over the course of the year that will help, but this is one of the ways to really leverage this energy. And so let's talk about Mercury being highly aspected first. Then we'll talk about Saturn being highly aspected. And then we'll close out by looking at what Venus and Jupiter are doing in Mars, because those guys are still doing some fun stuff. And we'll talk about that at the end of the video. But what we have going on with Mercury being highly aspected here, Mercury is mind, it is communication. We have a trine to Saturn, a harmonious aspect to Saturn down here in Aquarius. We have a sextile to Chiron here in Aries. So two major conversations there. We also have, if you're willing to read the asteroids, then we have a bit of Grand Cross energy here, because we have Mercury opposite Juno, our partnership asteroid, and she is moving retrograde. We have a square to Vesta inside of Virgo. Here is that energy. And we also have a square to Nessus in Pisces. On the relationship front, because this is a significant energy here, on our relationship front, what you're going to find at this time is a few different things: a bit of rumination, a bit of some of that shadow energy of Nessus, which goes a bit OCD, like a dog with a bone. It's almost like maybe you can feel something's off, not right, not clear. And so we can get very lost in some of the fantasy of what a thing is, or what it could be, or what it was. And now that Mercury is going direct, we're going to start to find a bit more of the clarity and the truth coming to the surface at this time about where things stand between us and other people. Okay. The energy with Chiron here, the Chiron and Saturn are bringing to Mercury at this time. Again, Saturn's out here, getting operated on by Uranus. Like, yeah, you're going to change. You are going to break down. You will not be the same person. Chiron's having the conversation like, yeah, look at these wounds that you've gotten as a result of this whole circumstance. How about you do a new thing? How about you make some new boundaries? How about you hold some new standards? How about we not tell a story about how we're not good enough, but how about we take a look at the ways in which we made that story up in the first place, and now begin the process of undoing that. Like, stop living like we're not good enough to have what it is that we want, or the kind of relationships we need, etc., or the kind of dreams we have. So that's some of this. Like I said, Mercury, mind, moving forward. It is waking up almost as if from a dream through that Neptunian transit, and clarifying a lot of what we have been experiencing. Because Neptune and partnership asteroid are having a direct conversation with the nodes, much of what you're experiencing here and kind of recognizing is the completion of what was probably a 12-year, 10 to 12-year pattern. The last time the nodes were in Sagittarius and Gemini was about 2011. And whatever kind of got started, I can look back in my life and see it now. I was like, oh, yeah, that's where this got started in this friendship. Okay. I see. I put myself under the bus at that period of time. I need to take myself out from under the bus. You may get that kind of clarity at this moment, like where the pattern of being collateral damage in that area of life for you has come from. This would be the moment of clarity, and this will be especially true in relationships, but it may be partially true as well if you are recognizing that this has to do with you and yourself and the way you partner with yourself. Okay, now let's talk about the Saturnian energy, because Saturn is also highly aspected. So here is good man Saturn, who is our second co-star of the show. Like I said, speaking in harmony to Mercury by trine. We've got an opposition to Mars here in Leo. We've got a square to Uranus in Taurus, which we mentioned. And this is also speaking, Uranus is speaking with Ceres by proximity here, conjunction. So that's going to bring an interesting energy with the full moon. We also have a sextile to Chiron here in Aries and a sextile to Juno in Sag. With Mars and Saturn speaking, and this T square to Uranus, I've spoken about T squares a lot in videos when they come up. I haven't heard anyone really discuss them the same way that I do, but I have found that yes, they bring an aspect of tension. Yes, they bring complication. Yes, they are very uncomfortable. But inside of the T square, we always have the solution to our challenge, the solution to our problem. This is a fixed sign T squares. We have 3 of the fixed signs indicated: Saturn in Aquarius, Uranus in Taurus, Mars in Leo. The fixed sign that's conspicuous in its omission is Scorpio. It's like there's nothing sitting there. So it would be very easy, and most astrologers do ignore the sign that's conspicuous in omission. But I have found that the only way to really get benefit out of the T square energy is to place yourself inside that sign. And so Uranus and Saturn are talking about change. Mars and Uranus are changing of boundaries, changing of standards. Mars and Uranus are talking about facilitating transformation around our motivation, what motivates us. Mars and Saturn here are having a conversation that provides a lot of deepened insight, deepened motivation, and a lot of kind of criticism, like critical thinking, critical actions being taken here. And it would be very easy with this energy, especially the way Mercury is in the mix. It would be very easy to get stuck, to get to a place of giving up, to just thinking, well, this is just how it is, and there's really nothing I can do about it. But actually, what we're supposed to do, in the way that I read, take it with a fistful of salt. I know other astrologers are probably like, what is she doing? But I don't care. I read the way I read. The way we have the opportunity to operate this is occupying scorpionic energy. Scorpionic energy governs the resurrection cycle. It is the energy of death, afterlife, and rebirth. Most people, who read the tarot, the death card, the Scorpio card comes up, and they want to focus on the rebirth. Oh, look, there's a rebirth here. Not without the death part. And this is the part that's really difficult for people to wrap themselves around, to talk about, to address head on. And what you may be recognizing at this full moon in Capricorn is the necessity of letting something die, an old way of being, an old relationship, an old dream, an old motivation or ambition, that would be Mars, an old way of nurturing your body, or an old pleasure, an old thing that you used to take pleasure from, that's the Uranus and Taurus. Or here, an old way of being available to people, that's Saturn there in Aquarius. You might be realizing, that you're the one that is the emotional backstop for a lot of the people in your life. And occupying scorpionic energy might be telling you, yeah, I can't be available for that anymore. You need to figure your own stuff out. At least that's my lesson. But you'll find this in your chart. And for my star schoolers, what you want to pay attention to is, where is the fixed cross in your chart? You want to look for what house Leo, Scorpio, Aquarius, and Taurus occupy, because this energy is highly active while Mars is transiting through Leo through the month of July. This energy is going to be highly active. And like I said, it would be very easy to do one of two things: to either give up, or to get into a place and be like self-defeatist, or it would be very easy to just like think yourself to death, to kind of like spin and spin and spin. But the answer, if you're willing to embrace it, is to let something go, initiate the scorpionic cycle with a death, so that something else can live, so that the rebirth can occur at its appropriate time. And so, like I was saying earlier, this one of my friends had this recognition and this insight that what she has to let go at this time is this concept that something is better than nothing. It's not. She actually has to set up new standards for herself when it comes to the kind of work she's willing to take and what she won't, so that she can progress in her career. So it might be something like that. Okay. So the next thing we're going to talk about are some of the major energies that are in the air at this time, and that will be with us through the end of this year. We've got Pluto sextile Neptune, Saturn square Uranus, Pluto square Eris, and Pluto square the creation goddess. Pluto's energy is a really big theme this year. And so we're going to get into how to work with that so that you're not blindsided, because Pluto really will force a change on you if you're not willing to embrace and facilitate it for yourself. And there are some things to know before dancing with Pluto, so that you don't get sucked under in the Plutonian undertow. We'll also talk about, like I said, Venus is doing some interesting stuff, Jupiter as well. But before we get there, if you're already feeling resonance with this, I'm going to invite you to subscribe if you're new. And if you want to take a deeper look at how to let certain things go, or what it is you need to let go in your chart, you can always book a reading with me over at kmoonastro.com. You'll be able to find links for personal readings or for relationship readings there, and booking into July. So that's pretty soon, next couple of weeks here. And let's pause and just see if YouTube wants to show a video. I appreciate it so much if you're willing to watch. Thank you so much. All right, so let's dig into this Plutonian major energy. We've talked about Saturn square Uranus already, so I'm not going to revisit that too much. But I do want to talk about what Pluto's doing. So at the moment, Pluto is sextiling Neptune. We're going to have that through December. We've got Pluto with a square to Eris, and this is important to understand Eris's energy, because, ooh, I love the way she just has that backbone, but man, she also has a bite. Then we also have Pluto square Haumea, the creation goddess here. And so this is important to understand, because of the way this, again, we've got another T square here, this one on the cardinal axis. Now, this one turns into a Grand Cross at this time because of the Venusian transit. Venus is opposite Pluto. However, Venus very quickly moves out the way, but we need to remember the Venusian lessons because Venus in Cancer gives us an energy of really feeling our emotions, knowing what we feel, recognizing where there's love and longing and love and loss and what we really value. And so I'm going to speak to this from the T square aspect first, because this energy is going to be in play and for the rest of the year. And this is really, it's been there since the beginning of the year, and I haven't really talked about it, but I feel like we're at a point this year where people's triggers are probably loud enough at this point in time for me to address it for you. Because now you know where the year is. Now you know what's unfolding. Now you know what the issues are. So again, Pluto is very much associated with the sign of Scorpio. It's eighth house energy. The three of those are linked: eighth house, Scorpio, and Pluto. Pluto being the ruler of Scorpio, ruler of the underworld. And so Pluto is speaking to creation goddess and having this conversation about us needing to let go of certain things that we may have created up until now with other people. Eris here is bringing to the conversation some places the recognition that part of why we have to let certain things go is because of the ways in which we have either been disempowered, sidelined, disenfranchised, not included in the major seats at the table in what we were creating. And so for some of you, this is literally going to be the loss of a business that you co-created with somebody else. And you're just recognizing it's time for me to step away from this because it's costing me my growth. It's costing me my peace. It's costing me, it's no longer what I thought it could be. And it's time for me to let this die. Some of you also may be recognizing that maybe it's not a business, maybe it is a relationship with creation goddess sitting here in Libra. Libra is all about our relationships. Pluto's all about business or jobs, maybe a job you need to let go. For others of you with Aries here, Eris and Aries, two different energies. Some of this may be about letting go of a way of being, a way in which you've operated here. Unfortunately, Eris constantly reminds us of where we've been victimized or where we feel victimized. And the important thing to understand as grown adults, not as children, but as adults who have sovereignty in our lives, is that no one victimizes us without us first victimizing ourselves. And, that's barring circumstances where it's like, you're standing outside and you get robbed. It's a very different thing. But in interpersonal dynamics where we're that's the word, consensually relating with other adults through a mutual agreement, the only way victimization is happening is if we ourselves are participating in it. And so you may have a lot of recognition at this time about where in your life you've been, light bulb moment for me, where in your life you may be playing the victim to certain things. Now, many of you know I'm a twin soul reader. I do a lot of work around twin flames and in relationships. One of the things that I'm constantly working to challenge in my sessions with clients is this concept that we are somehow victimized by the journey. We're not, right? Have a lot of things happened on the journey that have been a challenge? Yes. But are we learning and growing? Also, yes. To continue the victim story, well, they did this and they did that and they're blah, 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 and they X, Y, Z. That really just puts you in the position of abdicating your own power. And Eris and Aries is trying to force us all to recognize where and how we're doing that so we can cut it out. Now, as I mentioned with the fixed Grand Cross, or the fixed T square, the way to operate this is to step into Cancerian energy. Cancerian energy is all about the emotions. It's about coming home to the emotions. It's about having full emotional range, depth, and bandwidth. And how the way to work through the tension in this T square and what it is that needs to complete, the way it is to work through that is by getting into your own emotional truth about your circumstances. Now, I don't know your circumstance. If you kind of want to pick that apart and have a look at it, we can do inside of a session. But if you know your chart, you can find where Cancer sits, what house Cancer governs, and start to unravel this on your own. Okay. So I wanted to make sure to address those because this, like I said, this energy is going to be with us throughout the end of the year. And it'll be really important to not, let me put it a different way. We have an opportunity to tell ourselves a victim story as we start the new decade, or we have ourselves an opportunity to tell a new story and get new results in our lives. The choice is up to us. All right, so let's get into that fun stuff that Venus is doing. Venus is here opposite Capricorn, playing a role in that T square that I mentioned on the the cardinal axis. We have Venus talking to Lilith here via direct sextile. We also have a trine to Pallas and her protective energy, as well as Neptune, and that's really yummy. And we have I talked about the square to Eris. Okay, so when Venus is getting operated on in these ways by all of these energies, what this is telling a story about is love, money, and value. These are the things that Venus represents, and magnetism. The things we're really looking at here are things that we're emotionally tied to at this point in time with Venus in Cancer. This is going to really bring up, and this is so important to pay attention to your emotions. If you have a hard time figuring out your emotions, or if you find on the other side of the spectrum you're drowning in your emotions, EFT or tapping is a really great way to come back into neutrality and really see things for what they are. There's Google, EFT or tapping for, whatever circumstance you're in or emotion you're experiencing. YouTube has tons of videos, but what we're being asked to do is come home to what our emotional truths are at this time. And if you're not really sure kind of about the things that I've spoken about earlier, what needs to end, or where the victim story is, or what you're being asked to let go of, or what habits you're being asked to change this year, the best thing you can do is start to get keyed into your emotional truths at this time, because the emotions are wonderful barometers of what the thinking is, even if the thinking is operating at the subconscious level. The emotions will tell you, oh, if I'm feeling this, it's because I probably also have this thought. And so once you can trace it back to the thinking, you can start to unravel, is the thinking true? How can I find out for sure that it is? And what can I do to come from a place that allows me to be more in my divinity, more in my sovereignty, more in my ascended consciousness? Okay. So that's the way to operate what Venus is doing. Venus opposite Pluto gives itself an energy of its passion, but it also comes with a lot of manipulation and fear as well in mundane astrology. So I just want to make sure to mention that. Be careful not to manipulate people with your emotions, and be mindful of where people are doing that with you. Emotions may be very high at this time for a lot of people, with the full moon in Capricorn and sun over there in Cancer. All right. And lastly, or second to lastly, but not leastly, we've got Mars here having a conversation with Juno in harmony. There's some yummy relationship energy kicking off here. Some relationships might be popping off. We've got an opposition here to Chariklo and to Saturn. And we also have the sextile to the shaman's asteroid. So here, Mars having a conversation with all of these at one time. Mars represents our motivation, our ambition, our drive, our passions in the light and in neutrality. Thankfully, Mars is no longer giving, when it was opposite Pluto, that shadow aggressive energy. It's giving more of the light, self assertion energy here in Leo. And I love this because Mars is part of what's giving us the motivation to rewrite the rules in ways that work with us instead of work against us. And so this energy is very much alive and active in your lives. You want to pay attention to what house Mars is transiting through, because you'll be, if you decide to make some changes through that house or with the areas of life that house governs, you'll find that they go really well at this time, and some of those changes can stick even if they involve other people. Jupiter is having a conversation here with the sun. So Jupiter harmoniously aspecting the sun in its retrograde fashion. Again, this is just a lot of luck, very, very lucky energy, especially if you are a water sign. If you are of the scorpionic water sign and earlier in the Scorpio or late degrees Libra, you've got a grand trine with your sun coming through at this time. And it's a very lucky time to put yourself out there, to ask for what you need, to step up on certain projects. Things just have a way of going very well for you at this time. We've got sextile to Moon with Jupiter. We've also got a square to Lilith for Jupiter. And we've got a sextile to this Pholus conjunct the moon. So one of the things that might be highlighted, as I mentioned earlier, is this, idea of where you might be collateral damage and the ways in which you've been trying to grow and expand. The Lilithian energy here kind of guarantees that you're just not going to put up with it anymore. Thank the Lord. Lilith doesn't play that. When things aren't going so well or so beautifully, she'll kind of exit stage left. She's not really interested in hanging out in the world of things not going well for her for an extended period of time. And so that just adds to the nature of the Plutonian influence as well as the fixed T square, where you're meant to lean into Scorpio influence. There are indeed some things at this time that need to be let go of. And so you want to take a look, like I was saying, at that house that Scorpio governs inside of your chart to facilitate that next step. Okay. Where Scorpio sits, that's where the thing needs to be let go of at this time. Okay. All right. All right, beloveds, there's a lot happening here. I hope you found that useful. What you want to do is go ahead and book an appointment with me at kmoonastro.com if you would like me to look at the stars for you. If you're new, welcome. Please subscribe, especially if you heard something useful for you, because I'm here every new and full moon with new information to illuminate the path for you. And I just want to say thank you so much for watching. It's always a pleasure to share with you. Take great care and bye for now.